We joined a cult. We survived and we escaped. To expose everything behind the scenes that we saw, that we witnessed.
Can we just take these off?
Yes.
Cool.
Let's just take them off. In this episode, we talk about a very controversial personal development training that both Imad and I did that has been one of the most intense experience, but also one of the most rewarding things we've ever done. We also dive into the most painful lessons we've learned from it, the sad truth about vulnerability, and why it's so hard to change. So put on your tinfoil hats. Let's get into it. Jokes aside, last year has been a wild ride for my personal journey because of a specific training that I've done that is accused of being a bit culty, and maybe it is. Yeah, it kind of is.
It's a happy cult.
But has been one of the most impactful things that I've done, and I never talked about it publicly out of fear of ridicule. Does it have anything to do with the hats that we're wearing? Maybe. We'll find out. But you just finished that program as well. You did it with a different company, but it's basically the same training.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know what? Maybe it's time to talk about it. I've had a year since I finished it, so I've had some time to let the dust settle. But man, it's one of the most intense programs I've taken. And it's pretty controversial, I would say, in the sense that one, it has a bad reputation online. If you look on Reddit, it's always like,
Yep.
the Reddit posts. There's some crazy accusations about it being a cult for people who first hear about it but never really take it. And there's been a fear for me to talk about it publicly because of getting CoffeeZilla.
Of course.
You know CoffeeZilla?
Yeah.
Yeah, the channel that exposes scams and stuff like that. And so this is like prime material for that. And I've also had some drama in my friend group who, when I went through it, they were like, what is Leon doing? This is kind of weird. And some friends were kind of like on the fence. They started distancing themselves a little bit from me, but it's all good now. Yeah.
Dude, when I think of cults, or think about anything that you have wanted to get your friends into that's good for them, there's always going to be some sort of hesitation. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, it's like everything is a quote unquote cult. Because if you don't understand it, it's just kind of like, there had to be that first person that tried to inspire somebody to do sales. There had to be that first person that inspired somebody to be an engineer. There has to be that some person and there always has to be something that inspires something. But from the people looking outside, if they don't understand what's happening, it's like, oh, it's different. I can't be a part of it. Yeah. I'm like afraid it's gonna fall off. Like tape on my head. You know what I mean? Look at this thing. Jesus.
Mine's coming off a little bit too.
So bad. There it is. Yeah. No, but do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember should we even get into that first? Because I want to talk about the things that I actually learned in the program. What is the program even about? What are we talking about here? And then talk about some of the cult stuff. Because
cool. That's
the accusations. Because even like going to Tony Robbins, people are like, this is a cult. And I'm like, it kind of is, but like, it's fun. It's a fun cult.
Well, that's the thing. That's what we call it, a fun cult. It's a happy cult.
But it's not the cult. It's not the cult where. So let's just fully embrace it.
We only sacrificed 3 babies.
Yes, drank a liter like a month.
No, that's too much.
We didn't talk about that one.
10 ounces.
Okay.
Yeah, not that much, But,
yeah.
Because you don't want it to be weird, Like 4 babies, that's weird.
Yeah. No, I see the.
Yeah, you get.
There's a line that's crossed.
Yeah.
So. I want to start off with some disclaimers before people are going to Reddit and they're just like, okay, this is.
Are we going to name the cult?
Rails. Yeah. I'm going to name mine. So we both did it with different companies.
Okay.
So first of all, this is my experience with one specific organization, right? There are many organizations that do this training. Some of them are shady. Okay. Some of them are really weird and actually culty. So I can only speak for the one that I did it with, this specific training. There's no incentive that I have. Actually, there's more reasons for me not to talk about
100%.
this. Actually, there's no reasons for me to talk about it other than I want to. That's it. And I'm really putting myself out here to risk my reputation.
Yep, there it is. Your reputation, that's a sign.
Yeah, damn it.
Can we just take these off?
Yes.
Cool.
Let's just take them off.
I'm like stressed. Look at this thing. It's stuck to my head. Leon's head is massive. So as you can see, this didn't work out.
It's the prefrontal cortex that I've developed over the years of just.
Is this a question mark?
It is. That's what I thought. Exactly. That's what the vision was.
Look at this. It's a question mark. Look like something else, but I don't want to say it on YouTube.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
A little shrimp.
Yeah. Anyways.
So there's mostly downsides to me talking about this and really no upsides other than it may be an interesting episode. And this is a nuanced perspective, right? This is not, for people who are saying, oh, personal development trainings like this, they're all dumb. And it's also not for the side who just sign up for anything and they believe in anything they see online. So there's good and bad, right? And I want to kind of like, this is one of the core values of the podcast and myself, it's just like, there's truth in everything. There's good things about this program. There's bad things about this program. I want to talk about all of it. And not take sides, right? So, and then lastly, this is not a recommendation. It's just sharing experience.
Yeah, nobody has to join this.
Because people always feel weird about this. It's just like, oh, they're just doing this.
No, we're not selling you anything, I promise.
Yeah. And again, when you rave about something, people are like, is he getting paid for this? No. Nothing like that. And again, there's plenty of things that I liked, plenty of things that I disliked, and I don't think this is for everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to make any recommendations here. So it's so sad that I even have to like start that way. But yeah, I get it. People are on the fence. But so this is a emotional intelligence training that I did.
Mm-hmm.
That you just completed.
Yeah.
And online, they're kind of called LGATs. Have you heard of this before?
No, what's that?
Large group awareness training, which I think describes it well. Large group awareness. So the idea is you're in a setting with a bunch of people, right? A bunch of people you don't know. It's, for my training, it was like started out with like 50 people.
Yeah.
Or so. And you basically learn about yourself and group dynamics with those people through interactions with each other, because you do different exercises. You do exercises where you give feedback to each other on how you show up to each other, what your opinion of each other is. You do problem solving with each other. You do role play, and it's all to gain insights about yourself and also other people and the group dynamics. It has parts of like Gestalt therapy, guided meditations, stuff like that. And again, just like exercises and puzzles where you have to solve a problem together. And it's meant to dig up your patterns. And, you also talk about your past. You dig up some dirt from the past. And it creates so much awareness about what's not working. I mean, would you describe it like that too?
Yeah. I mean, what I like about it is it's like you're playing a game. And a lot of us can go into these workshops saying, oh, yeah, we're going to crush it. We know exactly what we're going to do. And then you play a specific game that they give you, then that game humbles you. In a way, you're like, wait, I thought I was really good at this. And now it's like, well, the game says otherwise. And and the thing is, it's not like there's a winner or loser in these games. It opens your eyes in sometimes a painful way, which is also very crucial for your growth.
They're supposed to catch you off guard.
Yes.
Which is one of the things that makes it weird when you just come from the training and people are like, oh, what'd you do this weekend? I'm saying, oh, I went to this training. Oh, what was it about? Well, it's like this thing and we did these exercises. What did you do?
Can't tell you.
I can't tell you about it because I don't want to ruin the training for you. That's
the culty part. I can't tell you is the culty part. Where it's like, oh, well, why are you keeping this a secret?
Here's the thing. I have a list of things that make it so easy to hate on this stuff and so easy to like dismiss it as, oh, this is red flag. And I agree. There's many red flags about this program and they all can be kind of explained away very easily.
100%.
But it's in a really bad spot. It's very easy to hate on. And that's one of them. It's you can't really talk about the exact exercises. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but we don't want to spoil it because this is a training you can only do once.
For the audience, put it in perspective. Okay. Let's say hypothetically speaking, you go and you want to play a game and you know how to beat that game. It takes the whole entire fun out of it. And then you go in there mentally preparing on how you're going to solve this problem. The whole point is to solve the problem. That's where your skill is tested. That's where your emotional intelligence is tested. That's where basically the attributes that you are trying to develop are tested to see, okay, what you need to work on, what you have solid in, what you're solid in, and what you're not. So it's like when people are curious to know, like, why? Just breathe. And what they say is TTP, trust the process.
Oh, that's what they said in your training?
Trust the
TTP?
process. The reality is just trust. Jump in, close your eyes.
It's
and
another
then,
red flag.
It is 100%.
I have it on my
Super
list.
culty.
We're gonna go through it. We're gonna go through it.
But it's like you don't want to ruin it for your friends. And the thing is, like, well, I'm never gonna do it. Hey, you say that now, but maybe you might crack. And I think that's the part where, at the end of the day, I gained nothing from like telling any of my friends about this, but I just wanted them to experience. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll be honest. I kind of wanted to see how they would do in the game.
Yeah.
I really did. I'm like, honestly, you talk a lot of shit. I think you'd fail. Personally, there's a part of me what I would like, because I got a couple of my friends to like do the program as well, and I told them, I was like, I think this is gonna crush you. Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I think this specific thing is gonna crush you. And then guess what happened? It crushed him. I'm like, see,
Yeah.
it all works out. But I think the thing that like is good is like, and I don't know if you're gonna go over this, like when you like if you told any of your friends to do it, but it's like you get to that place where you're terrified. You're like, all right, I am crazy enough to take these jumps. I'm always willing to like do something that's new, but I'm willing to put my life on the line because it's my life. Like I'm like, all right, I'm a risk taker. But in my head, I'm like, now my friends are trusting me. So now it's like,
well, we haven't even gotten into the whole like referral thing and all that stuff.
okay,
Because that's another culty part of it.
dude,
That's oh my god.
what do you call it that? It's not even that.
We should put the hats back on. Or?
Honestly, at this point,
Yeah. Okay. Let's put them back on. Let's just hold them here for a bit. Okay. So here's the thing. You know how these trainings started? Do you know the origin story of it?
I think it's like 1970s.
1970s.
Social psychologists came together and they like.
I think it was. So what I read on Wikipedia is Erhard Werner, probably the most German name possible.
That is pretty German.
He's this guy who took a bunch of personal development programs, the Dale Carnegie course and stuff like that, and he started the EST, the Erna School Training, whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
And he also took inspiration. This is a huge red flag right here. From Scientology.
Of course. Of course.
So this is what we're starting out with. So most people have already clicked off. They're like, these guys are
It's all good. We're doing this for us.
And
This is our therapy and our debrief. This is how we justify it to ourselves. It's not about the audience right now.
Yeah. So out of that came a lot of spin-offs over the years. There's companies like MITT, Lifespring, and Landmark. This is probably the biggest one right now. Landmark, I think, is very different from what we did.
Yeah.
But it's a similar training where you're with a bunch of people and you do therapy, group therapy with each other, with a bunch of strangers. And it's very intense. And there's that component of referring friends to it. And that's whether, again, easy to hate on it and just like, oh, this is super weird.
MLM.
Yeah, it has like this MLM feeling, right? And so the training that we did had three parts. One is like 4 days. The first part is 4 days. The second training is like a week after that is like 5 days. And then the third training is optional. Was it optional in your?
Yeah.
Yeah. Third training is optional. And that's where you set a goal for like 90 days. And part of the training is also they ask you to refer to family or friends so that they can keep the program going. So they don't run ads on Facebook. They don't market. But the way they sustain their business is, hey, if you found this training valuable, you tell your friends and family about it. I remember when I first heard about it from a friend of mine, I was like, I'm definitely not doing this training because this is dumb. And when you
should join my other cult now. All right, there's hope. There's hope.
What's that?
You should join the other cult we were talking about with Marina yesterday.
Oh my god.
That's next.
Yeah, great.
Now there's hope.
This is how I started out with the program. I was like, I'm going to do the first two parts of the training. The third part where I have to tell my friends about it and just like try to refer to people, I'm not doing that. And then I did the first two trainings. I'm like, I'm going to rave about this anyways to my friends. So like, might as well do it.
100%.
And long story short, I call me cult leader right here. I've referred 10 friends. And every single one who's gone through it, who's like, oh, thank you. That was fucking great.
You gonna start crying?
Huh?
You're gonna start crying?
No.
That's how emotional it was. You've saved
No.
the lives of all your friends.
But I just remember being like, I'm not going to be that guy. But when you like something and when something made an impact for you,
100%.
you know, you refer people. And so it's been a year since that whole thing happened. And because I thought while I was in it, I was like, is this just because I'm like in it right now. You know, when you go to a Tony Robbins event or you go to a festival or something like that, and you're like, this is how the world should be, yay! And then you come back to real life, and it's like, oh, everything's normal. And you realize, what was I thinking? That was so dumb. But it's been a year since I've done it, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it all over again. And whenever a friend of mine talks to me about certain challenges or asks for support, and I think it's the right thing for them, I'll tell them about it. But like, where should we go first? Should we go about the
Dude, like I completely agree.
It's
I've
so
studied-
difficult, man. Can I just get this off of my chest?
Okay.
It is so difficult for me to talk about this. It really is.
Why?
Because I think it can. I hate being misunderstood.
Yeah, but at the end of
I
the
hate being misunderstood, and I just.
It's a nerd.
It's that's one of my triggers. Like, I mean, I grew up in a family where my parents were not just divorced when I was really young, but they became enemies.
Yeah.
Like, and my mom would tell me all the terrible things that my dad did and why he's such a terrible person, and my dad did the same about my mom. And it was at an age where I was way too young to even, like, you shouldn't, guys, no, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, it was like when I was 8. It's just like, oh, he just, like, your dad doesn't even show up for your football games and whatnot. Like, he doesn't even care about you. And, you know, my dad would say, oh, your mom, she, I don't even want to get into it in case, they're listening. But I learned very early on, there's always two sides to every story. And not to, like, always to question everything. Like, okay, I wonder what their side of the story is. And so when I see something that's being so misunderstood, it gets me going. Like, it's just, because yes, there are organizations out there that use this referral thing to, like, pressure people and stuff like that. And there was a bit of that in this one too, but the benefits I got out of it, and, like, all my friends have gone through it, and it's literally just one training, but it's so easy. It's so easy to flag it as, like, this cult thing.
It outweighs the pressure.
Yes.
100%. The benefits 100% outweigh the pressure. Every single person, because I've gone, like, what, I think 16 now. 16 of my friends have done it. Dude, they all love it. One of my friends literally, I actually had one of my clients go through it. And the reason why I wanted him to go through it was because during one of our group coaching calls, this man's his father passed away in his hands, and he was a Marine. This man just was strong, like, he never cries, and I could just see him on the call, just sitting there and just holding in tears. I'm like, bro, let's stop everything, cry. He's like, no. I'm like, it's okay. And I'm like, you're afraid that you're gonna look like a bitch if you don't cry. I'm like, you look like a bitch right now because you're afraid of how we're gonna perceive you. Just let it out. And he just let it out. And he's like, I haven't cried in so long. And in that moment, I was like, well, you're going to do this. Is what I'm like, you're going to do another training. He's like, why? I'm like, trust me when I say this is going to help you. Because it's going to allow you to be in a situation that is going to let you let this stuff out.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have people that can comfortably, like, talk about the things that are making them uncomfortable, or talk about the things that are, holding them back. And now you have an opportunity around people that genuinely give a shit about you, that are gonna just listen.
Yeah.
And there are something, again, I've studied human behavior for, like, 8 years now. Like, I learned everything about influence, manipulation, all this stuff. There are some levels of, like, all right, you're doing specific things to get us bought in, 100%. And that's the quote unquote things that you would consider as culty. But the reality is, everything you do, you have to get people to be bought in. You always have to sell a concept. You always have to sell an idea initially. Yeah. And once you do it, you're like, okay, I see how this was sold to me for my own benefit, and now it's made my life significantly better. And the fact that I was closed off to it, I'm actually really happy that now somebody came and was able to persuade me out of it, because I had 4 people tell me about this, and I said no to each one of them. And the last person is the person I respected the most, because they were the most successful out of my whole network, that I was like, okay, if you did it, I trust you. You're not crazy. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best decisions I've made all year.
Yeah. Yeah. What also got me really afraid is that there's one friend in particular, actually 2, that I told about this. And it was very easy cold conversation. It was like, hey, I did this thing. I think you would love it. By that time, I had already referred 2 people. I actually referred 3 people the first day. So I met the requirement, but I was like the requirement to, like, get to the final graduation training, something or like celebration. But I was like, man, these guys are like, yeah, these guys are like in my best friend group. And this weird thing happened where one of them talked to his wife, and his wife like looked it up online, and who knows, maybe these friends are even listening right now, but like they know what happened, you know. So, but I'm not going to name any names, but they found this Reddit thread, and like all this like, oh my god, this rabbit hole goes deep. It's based on Scientology. It's based on this and that. And it's like, and it's terrible, and they do all these manipulation tactics, and it's like it's a scheme, and yeah, like then the word got around to my other friends, like, hey, careful with Leon, he's in this thing. And so that's why I'm so on the fence with this, because it's like I'm not fanatic about it. I'm like, this is a training that really helped me, and to the people I care about, I want to challenge you to do it. And if you really think it's not for you, I'm gonna leave it. It's fine. But like, hey, let's talk about this. Especially when I see friends of mine who have very broken families, and this is a training that, man, I mean, you dig up your stuff and your family stuff and things about your past that are not urgent, but they're everything in your life.
100%.
They're everything in your life. And
those things are stopping you from hitting the goals that you want to hit and having the life that you want. And you might not realize them, but it's all subconscious.
And even just being happy, you know, or your health, or how you move through day-to-day life. And so it's this thing that people can say, yes, I'm going to do it at some point, but they're just not going to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because a friend of mine told me about this 3 years ago. He had a 5-minute conversation with me. And I said, I don't know. Sounds cool, but I'm not really that interested. Then 3 years later, shit hit the fan. And a friend of mine, so my housemates were actually like, I was traveling, and one of my housemates, I kind of kicked his butt a little bit because he didn't give me feedback earlier for something that he saw coming. Like I was, building a deeper relationship with this person, and my friend saw that it was not going to work out, and he didn't tell me. And then when I broke it off, he was like, oh yeah, I saw that right away. It's like, why didn't you tell me? And so I told him, like, dude, if you see something, you tell me if you're my friend. So he sent me this voice message one day. He was like, hey, Leon, because you said that you always want feedback, and when when I see something, you want me to say it. Just to let you know, me and the other housemates, we've been saying how light it's been feeling in the house ever since you left. And when you're not here, like everyone is happier.
Recently?
No, that was a year and a half ago. And I listened to this voice message, and I'm like, thank you for loving me enough to tell me this. And I was like, man, I don't want to make people feel that way. And that's the effect that I had on people. And not just them, on other people too, friends that I wasn't present with, or my mind was always somewhere else, and it always felt like my time was too valuable for them, or that's the effect that it had on them. My intention was just like, oh man, I feel on edge all the time. I always have to do something. I can't sit still, and things are never enough, and I'm just not at ease. And so I sat down with them. I was like, hey guys, thanks for telling me this. What do you suggest? Like, what do you see? And so my buddy was like, either you should try psychedelic therapy, because I think you're holding on to some stuff that, gets to be released and it has to come out. Or there's this training that I did years ago, MITT. He did MITT. It's a different company. And
same thing though.
Yeah. And he was like, check that out. And I was like, oh, I remember my friend telling me about this training that he did. And this guy, he went from the guy with the biggest commitment issues, like he would date around like crazy, he was like a Casanova, to getting married, having a kid, and being this family man. And he's younger than me. Like he's like 26 or 7 now, and he's got like a 2-year-old kid, and he's like this family man, and he's like, and it's like somebody who went to church and became religious without being religious, but just like, and so he was living that transformation that I saw in him, but he was the one that I had the 5-minute conversation with. That was like, where I was like, yeah, I'm not interested. And so then I did the training. And I wish I would have done it 3 years ago, but I just wasn't ready. I was not in enough pain yet. And I don't know where I was going with this, but that's how I got into it. And yeah, it's been a year since I finished the training, and a lot has happened since. I've dug out a lot of stuff. I've learned a lot about myself. And the biggest, if I had to summarize, the biggest thing that I took away from it is that my love for human beings has doubled.
100%.
That is, I think, the biggest thing, because I remember the first day of the training, you're there with 50 people. You walk in, nobody knows each other, and you're just like, what is this thing? Your friend just told you about it. They play this weird music. There's these people that are well dressed, that are sitting at a back table, and you get into the training, you're just like, what is...
Is that giving too much information?
No, I don't think so.
I don't give everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it though. But no, I don't think that's giving away anything.
Cool.
Yeah, but I guess you're supposed to be kind of put into an environment where you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't reveal too much. But basically, the first day, you're like, what is going on? And I was so judgmental of everyone being there, because I was just like, I've done all these trainings already. I know everything. But I'm like open. I'm like, no, I'm here to learn. I'm here to like get the most out of it. And so by the end of the training, when you go through all this stuff together and everyone shares their story and you go through these different exercises, and a lot of them are very confronting and very intense and deep, and you really open up there if you participate. Everyone's like family. And my ability to connect with anyone, like strangers, has like tripled, because I remember going to the training and taking Uber back and forth to the training, and I would talk to the Uber drivers, because I'm like, man, I just witnessed so much grief in people and so many like stories that they shared, where initially I thought, this is just a stranger. I don't really have no connection with them. They're like completely different. It's like this, single mom in her 40s or whatever, right? Or just some old guy in his 70s. Like, I have no connection to those people. But I would sit in an Uber with this random driver, and I'd be like, you know what? I've seen how much is behind these people now. And I just started conversations with them. And man, even just with an Uber driver, the things you learn about a human being. Like, I was talking to this one guy, I think it was Christmas time. It was around this time. And I was like, oh, how are you celebrating Christmas? And you could tell he didn't really want to talk. He was a little bit open to it, but he was like, giving short answers, like, oh, not sure, probably just going to stay here. I'm like, oh, you celebrating with family? He's like, oh, no, they're not in the US. I'm like, oh, cool. Where are they at? Oh, they're somewhere in a country in West Africa somewhere. So he was from Africa. And, he started opening up, because I was genuinely curious. I'm like, I wonder what is behind this human being, because I just got so curious about everyone. And he started opening up to me. And he was like, yeah, I'm so excited to go back next year to my family. I'm like, oh, what's the last time you've been back? He's like, 8 years ago. I'm like, really? 8 years ago? Didn't you say you have 2 kids? Yeah, I have 2 kids. So you haven't seen your kids in 8 years? He had a 13-year-old, I think, and like a 10-year-old. So he left them when they were 2 and 5, and he hasn't seen them in 8 years. And then he gets a call from his wife, and the kids are on the phone. He hasn't seen his like. And there's people like that all around us, that have a story, and that is, I think, the biggest thing that I took away from it.
Yeah, dude. No, and it's a lot, because you just have more empathy. You have a lot more empathy for people. Remember there was a woman who was in my group, one of my groups, and this woman was abused by everybody in her family that she trusted, like family, friends. She saw like the most horrific things I've ever seen, and it's crazy because, like, I thought my upbringing was bad. She makes my upbringing look like a cake. I mean, again, we're not here to compare, and I can just see the pain in her eyes, and I was like, damn. And then there was people that were like that ran refuge from war. There's the happiest people there, but are suffering, and you're just seeing that like, damn, you guys really needed this more than you can ever imagine. One of my best friends, I love her to death. You met her, I think this weekend. She was so closed off. She never gave people hugs. She didn't like being touched.
I know which one you're talking about.
Now all she wants to do is hug people.
This is another weird culty thing, right?
Dude, yeah, but literally all she wants to do is hug people, hold people, just be close to them, because now she opened her heart, and now she's like letting people in. And what's crazy is, dude, I have so much respect for her, because she took massive risk. She didn't have that much money. She just knew she was in pain. She needed to figure it out. She literally comes here, does it, meets a great community of people, quits her job, moves to Austin, and now is living here and now trying to create a new life, which is wild. And back then she didn't have that many friends like where she was, and she just basically had like a routine. She was just living to die and not like dying to live. You know?
Yeah. I think also the flag that a lot of these programs get is, and there is truth to it. There's organizations that just like, oh, you took this training, now look at how much you open up, take the next one and the next one, and they have you keep paying. I heard that about Landmark. This one is a one-off payment. Mine was $4,000, and I literally got like 6 months of training. Like the first one was like 4 days, and the next one was like 5 days, and then the third one, the optional one, is like over 90 days. And there's a bit of breaks in between, but like it was like, and you pay it once.
And again, for everybody here, you don't have to do the third training where you have to refer people.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is like honestly, like the first training, second training, that's everybody needs to do that. The thing about the third training is that it integrates everything. It's like, imagine having people on your ass every single day trying to help you hit your goals.
Yeah.
That's literally it. And that's what makes it so uncomfortable. I always tell people, like, I don't really recommend like level 3 or like the third training, just because it takes a specific type of person. You need to have patience. You need to have grit. You need to have like resilience, because they're going to trigger the F out of you. Like they're going to trigger you. I would call Leon just complaining all the time. Like, I hate this thing. I'm so mad. I'm so annoyed. But one thing it really taught me that I will say that I really struggled with is, dude, I suck at receiving love. I really suck at receiving love.
We have the same pattern. We talked about that.
Yeah. I am so good at giving and supporting and helping people. Yeah. But then when somebody tries to help me or make comments, I make it about them. I bring it back. And I'm so good at talking and reframing that I can just bring it back. Oh, yeah. But anyway, tell me about you. And it's just like this whole idea of receiving. And our mutual friend, her only goal was to break me. She just wanted to break me. She wanted me to just like
cry,
feel,
and receive.
And I'm just like, nope, not happening.
Yeah. What do you think that is? What have you learned is behind that? Because I have the same pattern.
Dude, I think here's the thing. This is gonna get a little deep.
I'm curious what your takeaway is, because I have my own. But
okay, so for me, man, I grew up very my feminine, personally. So my parents left when I was really young. So like, and then when I started living by myself, I lived with a lot of single mothers, and I got a lot of their bad traits. And I started really just kind of diving into my feminine, and I would really just have like doormat qualities where I would just let people walk all over me. I never really was assertive, and I was kind of just more of like.
So you're very agreeable.
100%.
Yeah, which is a more feminine trait.
Yeah.
Yeah, and feminine, masculine can be both in men and women.
It's of course, yeah. But it's like I leaned in more on my feminine because I was very good at communicating. I was always good at keeping myself safe and like getting myself out of situation. But I never put myself in a situation where I had to like get aggressive or physical. And even if I did, I'd be kind of more in my like, because they say like passive aggression would be like a more feminine trait and like the negative. So I'd be focused on like emotional warfare instead of like physical warfare. That's how I break it down.
Yes. And you were more covert rather than overt.
Yep.
Right.
And the biggest shift was I ended up working, and this is kind of like how I became successful. I started working for one of the top sales companies in the coaching space.
I remember you mentioned that in the first episode.
Yep. And these guys destroyed me. I got fired in like 2 months because I was too soft, too nice. And I told myself I'm never going to feel this feeling again. Yeah. And I just went, like I said, to the other spectrum, and I became super masculine. And then what's crazy is as soon as I became super masculine, all my dreams came true. Started making more money. Every girl I started dating wanted to like pursue a long-term relationship, because when I was like more in my like, I was trying to figure it out. Every girl would be like, "Oh yeah, you're fun, you're charismatic. I like being with you, but I don't want to date you. Like, you're not a long-term. You're not a long-term partner. You're like a fun one-night stand, maybe like a couple nights, you know. But I'm not gonna take you serious." Compared to them, when I became in my masculine, every girl like that would date, that would go further, would put me in the hubby zone. Business owners just all wanted to work with me. I was just extremely successful, but I wasn't connecting with people as like I used to when I was more in my feminine, because I wasn't vulnerable.
Yeah.
And the biggest feedback I got from everyone was, "You always wear this mask. You're always perfect. You're always happy." And what's crazy about it is, because we can't support you, there's always a disconnect where we can't really connect to you fully. Because we want to support you, we want to love you, you help us all the time. You always take care of everybody, and you're always tapping into that masculine. You want to take care of everybody, but who's taking care of you?
Yeah.
And so basically, you suffer in silence, and now everybody is just kind of like taking a step back and doesn't know, because you haven't told us you're suffering. Then you build resentment on the inside because no one's supporting you, but it's your own fault.
Yes, it's the lone wolf. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. But before you get into like, it's such a powerful realization.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have realized that if I didn't go through this program.
Yeah. That's I think one of the most valuable things is that people will literally just tell you, like, this is a big part of the training, is people will just tell you how they perceive you.
Yeah.
And it's funny how consistent the feedback is. It's like, I realized how socially intelligent everyone is. Everyone picks up on the tiniest cues.
You think you're hiding it, but you're not.
You're not, dude. And some things are being misunderstood, but it's consistently perceived a similar way. It's not like people are like, "Oh, this person is really, the first impression is really warm," and the other one's like, "Oh no, super cold." It's like, it usually is quite consistent. And when 10 people tell you the same thing,
who's the problem?
Yeah. And it's something to look at, right? And so, yeah, I had a similar, very similar feedback, which is that when I would talk to someone, I would always ask them questions, be like, "Okay, what are you working on? What do you need support with? What do you know?" And I would guide the conversation with questions and just like lead it and take over. I would control the conversation. And for me, I think it is a sense of control, and also a sense of, I can only receive love when I've given a lot, and I can take a little bit. But if I'm taking too much, there's guilt associated with it.
And that's when you feel worthy. That's like the idea. It's like, I need to like give you enough for me to feel worthy enough to receive.
Yeah.
That love.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. And people also mentioned the disconnect, because they always felt like, "Oh, Leon has it all together. He's doing all right. Like he's doing good." So nobody reached out to me to like support me. And just in general, people felt a sense of disconnection from me, because I was always in the mode of, "Hey, let's get this going, guys." Like whenever we had a challenge to solve as a team and stuff like that. Yeah, and what I learned was that for me specifically, vulnerability is a superpower for anyone, really. I mean, and it's oftentimes what can bridge the gap between like any human being, like just, but the kind of vulnerability where you feel naked. Not because I would be vulnerable in the past when I know it would serve the other person.
100%.
I'm going to be vulnerable so that you feel more comfortable. It was in service of somebody else, instead of just being like,
you're conditional vulnerable.
Exactly. Where I'm still in control, but not the sense where I'm like, I don't know what to do here, and I don't.
Dude, that's so powerful. And that was one of the biggest feedbacks from my coach, where I said, I'm super vulnerable. Everybody is close to me. I'm like, I've built these relationships. Like I built some of the closest relationship connections in like the world. Like, what do you mean I'm not vulnerable? And they were like, "Yeah,
that
but
was
you're
such
not
a Trump
vulnerable."
statement just then.
Yeah,
I built the most closest relationship in the world.
No, because I was annoyed.
I've never seen it before.
It's like, I'm annoyed because I'm like, I know my ability to connect to people is so deep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, am I lying? You're like, no, you're not lying. You're just choosing when to be vulnerable. You're not vulnerable with this person. Well, why not? If you were vulnerable, you'd be vulnerable with everybody the same way. But as you're being vulnerable with specific people, that there's a mutual beneficial like progression in whatever you're doing. And the big realization was, she told me, she said, "When's the last time you called somebody, just told them something that happened to you that you wouldn't normally share?" just out of the blue. And I thought about it, I'm like, wow, it's true. I haven't. Never.
Yeah.
Like if we were having a conversation, you told me like, let's say your girlfriend broke up with you. Well, this something similar happened to me. Like my girlfriend broke up with me like that. But it needed to come out from you, or I needed to tell you a story for you to feel comfortable enough to tell me that thing that I was trying to get out of you.
Yeah. You again, you do it to.
It's not real.
To give, right?
Yeah.
See, but and what I learned is when I do it just for me, it creates connection in other people. So even if I do it for me, even if I'm just like, I just want to communicate this because I feel this way and it sucks and I don't know what to do. And I don't even know if there's a point to me saying all this, but this is how I feel. It is one of the biggest gifts I can give someone, because then they feel a sense of connection where it's like, this person is real.
Yeah, but what about you then? Because here's the thing, you give it to them, but it's like you can't get that. And you don't put yourself in that situation where you can receive it. Because I agree with you. I'm right there with you.
But here's the thing, when I truly receive it, even then it is giving. It's the biggest gift that we can give. That's my point. Do you get it? Like, because we're like, okay, I'm doing vulnerability when it supports you. But if we're doing vulnerability because it supports us, that's the biggest support we can give anyone.
Exactly.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, so
because then it allows people to be like, oh, like this person's real. I can really connect with them, and now I have permission.
I thought you mentioned like the biggest gift is when you give, when they give you back. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. We're just talking. I'm like, we just get the complete opposite. What are you talking about? Okay. I was confused. But it's interesting because my first like experience of this was speaking to one of my best friends. You know him, the one that lives in 6G. And he I remember, I'm like, all right, how do I stretch myself into actually doing this? What needs to happen? And something just happened and I was in pain. And this is something I would never tell. Because again, used to be a dating coach, really good with a woman. I don't like talking about the time do I get rejected. Do I get rejected? Yeah, all the time. But do I go around telling the world? No, not at all. But I'll never forget, there was a situation where I went on a date with this girl. Everything seemed great. She was like the first girl in a really long time that I saw potential in. And I remember texting her after our date. She seemed like she was excited to see me again. And I was getting like, answers. Not like, then she ghosted one of the times and I sucked up my pride because I'm trying to lean into vulnerability. I'm trying to do everything that they taught us. Like, oh yeah, this works.
Oh, this was after you'd done the training.
I'm still in training.
Okay.
I'm doing this during the training and I'm trying to see how it works.
Yeah.
And I remember
you take the risk of, okay, let me give this opening up vulnerability thing a try.
Let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it turns out.
So I'm again putting my pride out and getting rejected. And then I say one more time. One more last go. And I sent her something, and she I remember gives me like a response, like a haha. It shattered me. And then I think 20 minutes later, I see her on a private jet. And my ego.
And it wasn't your private jet.
It was not my private jet. My ego, my pride. Like, listen. At this point in my career, I have a bigger dick than most when it comes to this stuff. You know what I mean? Not like physically. I mean, we're not talking about that. But you know what I mean? But it's more like, I always talk to my friends, like energy-wise, like there's always somebody with say bigger dick, like I mean energy-wise. Like finances, you do well. Like there's not really many that can come and really throw me off my game when it comes to attracting a girl with just material wealth. Private jet is. I haven't gone to that level yet. So that was...
Yeah, so you have a public jet.
Yeah, public jet, whatever. But when it happened, dude, it really hurt. And I was like, damn, it was a humbling moment. And I was like, remember, you ain't shit. And just come back to reality. And it was eye-opening. But I can also be aware enough to be like, yeah, no, I know my ego got the best of me. And I remember calling my friend and just being like, hey, man, I'm just calling you just to tell you something that happened. Honestly, this is just me being vulnerable. This is what happened. And I just experienced this with a girl. I really liked her, and she just liked somebody who had more money and was more successful than me. And it made me feel less than. It made me feel worthless. And he was like, dude, I get it. Happened to me 3 months ago. Same thing. And it just built this new level of relationship.
Yes.
Where he just came to me and he said, yeah, dude, I get it, man. It sucks. It's painful.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, man. I would have never like told somebody about that, but I'm glad you shared it because I was able to like tell you that.
Mm.
And it was just a beautiful moment. We just had like a good laugh, and again, we just connected more because I was just willing to just call him and be like, "Hey, I trust you enough to be like,
Yeah.
you know."
Now, here's what I saw, even with people that are not your friends, but people that you have a disconnection with. Because there's certain people in the training, right, where you're just like, I'm kind of avoiding this person because, she looks like the type of woman that hates men, right? Or
Yep.
on the other side, it's a woman who's like, oh, this young dude, this young blonde, blue-eyed dude, it's probably a dick. I don't want to. I hate those guys. I don't talk. And then when you get paired up with somebody like that to do an exercise together, or there was this one guy really stood out to me. That's one of the big lessons that I learned too. This one guy looked like an old rich guy, right? He had like these glasses that made his eyes really small, and he had like a turtleneck, and he just looked like a typical like accountant, like a really judgmental person, just like somebody who was like, and he was very quiet. He was just like observing everyone, and near the end of the first training, he finally shared. He took the mic and he shared some of his life story. And he was like, "Hey, I haven't been really speaking, and I think it's I'm ready to participate." And I was like, "Okay, interesting." I had this judgment about him, right? And he shared this vulnerable story where he's like, "I just don't trust people, and I just have so many walls up because as a little kid, we moved all the time, and every school I went to, I got bullied. And all I would do is I would lock myself in my basement. That was his place. And I just wish people were nicer to me." And I was like, oh my God, like I judged that guy so much. And I felt this disconnection. I just had a sense of like, I don't want to be around this person. The moment he shared that, I'm like, I love this person.
I want to hug him. I want to support him.
Like the entire room had the same feeling. And that's the feedback that he got from everyone. And in that moment, everything changed. So that's the power of vulnerability that I learned. It's just like the naked kind of vulnerability. And
Dude, it's terrifying.
It's the kind where you just like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Like your palms are sweating, knees weak, arms are heavy. All that.
I hate you. So much,
I was just getting into a flow, man.
Oh my God. We were having such a moment. We were having such a good moment, and you just got rid of it.
Oh man, I don't know why that came out.
Dude, no, that's solid. That gave me chills.
Yeah.
That was really good. Because you could just see, man, the level of pain these people go through, and you're like, damn, I just want to support you.
And literally everyone. And so when I go to the cashier, when I talk to an Uber driver, I'm like, this is another person that has a story like
Everyone
that.
has a story. The bully has a story because he was bullied. And the person that's getting bullied is then going to become potentially the new bully.
Yeah.
Or the bully had their parents bully them, and now they have to take it out on others. It's like everybody has a release of energy, and it's like whatever you create now, you're basically projecting to the next person. You hurt one person, that person now takes that pain and hurts somebody else. You help one person, that person takes that help and helps somebody else.
Yeah.
Same thing. And it's like, why don't you just spread positivity and connection and love instead of hate? And again, like I said, I think a lot of us spread hate or hurt by accident.
Or fear.
Yeah. And again, sometimes it's not, we don't do it on purpose. I don't think everybody has the malicious intention.
I think nobody has.
I just think it's just like life has forced them to take specific actions to survive. And in doing so, they think it's what's right. And reality is that we don't know what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, well, it's a pattern that they've developed as a child because they were a child and children are dumb and they have limited resources and they just limited experience. So they're just like, oh, I have to do this in order to meet these needs. And then we just don't upgrade it as adults.
100%.
Right? It's difficult. But here's the thing. It doesn't even require this like heavy vulnerability to make a difference. One of the biggest things that I wrote down for myself as a lesson is it takes 10 seconds to make a massive difference. 10 seconds. And here's what I mean by that. So throughout the training, there was certain people that I didn't feel much of a connection with, and other people, we just connected. Like, they gave me very different feedback from those people. And oftentimes it was just that I talked to them for 10 seconds, or I smiled at them, or I said, hey, by the way, we're getting back in the training. Are you coming? and I just or struck up a conversation, and that made all the difference because I went from a stranger to somebody who connected with them, who chatted with them, who even just asked them a question. How did you like the training so far? Like that alone makes a huge difference. And what also makes a huge difference is like it doesn't much time for this vulnerability thing. Like it can take 10 seconds where you just send a voice message to a friend of mine. Like for example, a friend of mine, he's been sick for a few years now. He's been battling different health issues, and I saw him, like I think, probably like 6 months ago, and he looked pretty well. He looked like he had energy and he was doing well, and I saw that, and I was talking to my friend about it after that, and we're just talking. Yeah, like he looks vibrant. It's great to see him like that. And I was like, you know what? Let me tell him that. Let me send him a voice message. I sent him a voice message. I'm like, hey, just letting you know, I know you've been through a lot of stuff, and like, just wanted to let you know you look great, man. And I know you've been through a lot of stuff, and it's good to see you this vibrant. Like I can really tell that things are moving forward. Or maybe you're just making it look easy, or you putting on a strong face, but like I see you. And I get a text message back. I was like, oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. That text message, there's so much more behind it. Because he told me months later, he was like, dude, that message meant a lot. Made a huge difference for him. Just that 10 seconds. Or even just like forwarding a compliment that you hear from someone. Like, for example, a friend of mine told me, oh yeah, like this guy that introduced me to, who is that dude? He's the manliest man I've ever seen. Like that guy is he's like, I don't know what it is about him, but he just like exudes like this energy. I went to the guy and I told him, hey, you know what my friend Brad said about you? He said this. He's like, oh, that's funny. Brad comes back to me months later and says, you know what? Your friend who I said is this manliest man, he came up to me and he got really emotional. He was like Leon said, what you said about me, I really appreciate it because it's a huge insecurity of mine. So I didn't even know that was going on. But like these little acknowledgments of like, hey, I see you, make a huge difference in someone's life.
Dude, it's so crazy.
Like reaching out to someone, hand on the shoulder and being like, hey, I hope you're doing well. I know you've been through a lot, whatever, right? Or just like a heartfelt, like a present, genuine like check-in with friends. When you think about them, just send them a message. When if you listen to this right now, like who's a friend that you miss?
Okay.
Tell them. It makes a huge difference. Like, and I remember going through a Date with Destiny, Tony Robbins event, another cult.
Yep.
And
they do the same thing.
They do. A lot of it is based on this stuff too.
The same thing.
But this is more like
because they also have their referral stuff too.
Yeah.
They have their referral stuff. Once you get to the program, you go through it, then you have to refer, and yada yada yada.
No, you don't.
Yeah, there's one of them with Tony Robbins. My friend said the same thing. She did the same thing.
Which one?
Marina literally paid $150,000 for Tony Robbins stuff. Like she went through everything.
Oh, she went through platinum.
Everything.
That's like okay, but you don't have to refer people. I think
there's a one where she did.
Okay, I never heard about that.
Dude, it's crazy.
Okay, I remember
again. If you never heard of it, she told me that.
I'm
speaking out of her own experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't fact check me. I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't care that much. This is not hell I want to die.
Yeah. So, but my point was, I went through that training and had a conversation with my mom, because one of the parts in the training was Tony Robbins training was like, hey, like maybe it's time to have a conversation with that person that you have some tension with. And had a conversation with her, and it was a tough conversation. It was very vulnerable. I was already crying before I called her, and just told her about a lot of things that were in my heart that were heavy, because we didn't have the best relationship growing up, and it's transformed now. But it's from that one conversation, like one conversation. And initially, it didn't seem like a big deal to my mom, because she was like. She was a bit defensive. She was a bit hurt by the fact that that's how I felt. But she told me she was flying for a week after that conversation. And yeah, it transformed the relationship. Just one conversation. Like you can have years of resentment, of pain, of hurt, of just like built up stuff. You're one conversation away. You're like a 5-minute conversation away from healing everything. If you have a business partner that, the business exploded because you guys had a fight. Like I know friends of mine who, their entire business just came crumbling down because the two founders are, having tensions. you're just 5 minute vulnerable conversation away from just like, hey, I really miss you, and I'm hurt by this, and like, I'm sorry for anything that I've done to,
Yeah.
and that, I think, again, is one of these urgent things in life. Like, that's fucking life. It's like, I don't know.
No, but this is what stuff like this is what we speak a very similar language now because of the shared experience. I would love most of my friends to speak the same language. It's a beautiful language.
Yeah.
It's done well for me in the past. Like when I've experienced a lot of positivity and gratitude and just good things come into my life from going through this process. Again, we don't care if you do it or you don't. The reality is, it's like, at least for us, it's been very beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I mean, maybe we can go through some of the
we went on a tangent, but a good tangent. But we went on a tangent.
I'm gonna cut it down again a bit.
Dude, don't.
No,
That part-
some of the, not this part, but
That part, the last like 20 minutes was gold.
okay.
Gold. Are you
No,
serious?
I'm keeping it.
We were talking about the people and their experiences, and like I think that
no,
was the
absolutely.
gem.
I agree.
Keep this part too.
Maybe.
Fuck it. Right? Like let people see the process we go through.
Yeah, I guess so. I would love to get into, man, kind of like the nuanced perspective of, there's bad things about this training, things we don't like, things that seem kind of weird, and there's good stuff. We talked about the good stuff. We talked about the lessons. But it just requires a very nuanced perspective because it's such a difficult thing.
So what are the bad things?
Okay, for example, it's the things that are I think easy to hate on. They're not necessarily bad things, but what I'm talking about is when people go online and research this and they're like, oh, this is a cult, and then they find this like breakdown of like, these people are like, oh, I've studied cults for years. This is a thing. Like I remember talking to this guy in Barcelona when I lived there. He's like, oh yeah, Tony Robbins is like a huge scam. Like anything this guy does is just to like brainwash you and all that stuff, right? And it's like, I'm like, he does do a lot of like influence tactics, what he would call manipulation. He uses all these tactics to manipulate you. It's like, well, same thing with this training. I would say they use a lot of things to influence you, right? So it's like different perspectives on the same thing. So like, where am I going here with this? I don't know.
No, but this okay. Let's talk about that.
I like that
But
you're catching me.
This
I'm like stumbling and falling. Like
this is what's annoying. Like, for anything to happen, you need to be influenced,
manipulated,
whatever you want to call it. It's funny because
I
whenever
know.
whenever somebody tells me that, I always change it to influence. I'm like, yo, maybe I'm against influence.
Yeah.
I'm influential. I'm not manipulative.
Yeah.
It's very, very big difference. Because I used to be manipulative when I was younger, but I was like, I don't like that word because there's too much negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's like, everybody has to be influenced. When your parents tell you have to be a lawyer or a doctor, they're trying to influence you. They're finding every influential tactic.
Yeah.
If you get good grades, we'll pay you. We'll give you things. They're basically influencing you. If you get us one person, you'll graduate.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like you're doing this for the benefit. Like our parents try to influence us and bribe us with money, but they're doing it because they think that if we become a doctor, then our life is going to be good and we're going to be safe.
Mm.
Just like they might think they know what's best for us. Everybody thinks they know what's best for the other person. And if the person rejects it, it's manipulation. Or if they say, oh, you're just trying to force me to do something that I'm not comfortable with. No, they just didn't do a good job influencing you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so this is how I kind of justify, or this is how I looked at it in the training. I'm like, because there's certain things that they say that are like, ooh, that's a red flag. That's like, if you put that online and just like, if I told people this, they'd be like, oh, that sounds really bad. One of them is trust the process. It's like, just go all in and trust the process. That's weird. Like you're telling that I can't question things. I can't be on the fence. What I saw is that when you're going through this training, everybody in there has to be all in.
Yes.
Because if there's one dude who's like crossing his arms and crossing his legs, like, you know what? I don't know if this is for me. I'm kind of, let me just watch. Okay, you want everyone else to open up and you just watch here and you're just like judging the fuck out of everyone. So if there's even one person in the room that is on the fence, that is kind of like, I'm just going to sit back and like take notes and look at everyone, nobody's going to open up.
100%.
It's going to be so difficult. And so You either have to be all in or leave the training. It's that simple. And that's like one of these things where it's like, oh, like they force you to do this and it's like peer pressure and all that. It's like, it is peer pressure. Because that's what's required. Because people share things they've never shared before that they've been terrified of. And it's this beautiful moment in the training where initially everyone's kind of like, "Ooh, what is this?" You know, everyone's kind of has their walls up and stuff like that. And then as soon as the first person shares something and the second person, the third,
Floodgate.
Everyone is like, "This is a safe space." Wow. And then that's when the deep connection happens. And that's one of these things that's like very easy to misunderstand, right?
Dude.
The second part we talked about, or you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah. What I hated about it
Mm-hmm.
was the constant reframing.
Yeah.
Dude, listen. I've trained some of the biggest sales teams in the world. When I say bad, like a lot of like people that are watching this, a lot of your heroes, guess what? Their teams are trained by me. And I'm really good at reframing because it's everything when it comes to client fulfillment, when it comes to sales, when it comes to leading teams. You always have to find a way to reframe it.
Reframing means, in this case, you have a thought or you have something that you're saying, and you use different language to describe the same thing, but in a more empowering way.
100%.
So instead of saying manipulation, you say influence.
Exactly. Sometimes life happens.
Yeah. Instead of life happens to you, it happens for you.
Exactly.
Right? Reframe.
But see, that's exactly the thing that would piss me off.
Yeah.
Because sometimes life does happen and there's really nothing I can do. How can I take ownership? And I get annoyed because I'm just like, I just truly couldn't do anything. Well, you're being a victim.
Yeah.
I'm not being a victim.
Here's the thing. I agree. And logically speaking, you're right. And I'm fully on your side. At the same time, I saw people who, I don't even think I can say it on YouTube, but they were sharing that, you know, at gunpoint, they were forced to do things. And that person, she was never able to speak about it and talk about it. And it was this highly traumatic experience for her where she was literally like uncontrollably shaking. That woman is a different woman now. Like she was like, I associated with the wrong people. That was my responsibility. Not all of it is my fault, but where can I take my power back? Does it make sense? Here's the thing, I think, and this is what they said in our training. I don't know if about yours, but
it's extreme though.
If it happens as a child, yes, you're a child. It's not your responsibility. If it happens as an adult, where could you have taken some ownership somewhere, even with the most and this is maybe where, you know, this is okay, we're canceled now. Driven Podcast episode 4. Yeah. That was it. We're in the grave.
We did great.
Yeah. We had a great run. But I'm not saying she should do that, but I saw her do it and I saw how it supported her.
I want to play devil's advocate.
Please.
So, and okay, this is something that I have really battled with, especially because I'm a firm believer where you focus your energy, the energy persists.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in my entire life, I've always been safe because I truly, to my core, believe I'm always safe. And I always don't put myself in places that I just have good high. Plus, I also grew up in a very, very dangerous neighborhood. So I'm extremely hypervigilant and I know exactly how to read signs. So I can get out of I can put myself in a safe situation. Mm. Could you argue now that it's like if something bad happens to a woman, like abuse, would you say that that's her fault because she didn't take complete ownership?
No, it's not about fault. I think that's where the disconnect is. And here's the thing, I'm not even...
And again, we're just playing devil's advocate. This is just like, you know what I mean?
And I'm not even saying anybody should do this. I'm just saying, here's what I witnessed from someone who has had the worst thing happen to them. And this is how they did it. And it supported them. That's all I'm saying. I'm in no spot to tell anyone to do anything or even, you know.
I'm talking about ownership. I'm talking about ownership.
Yeah.
Like, would you own that it happened to you because you did this to you?
No. I don't think it's about ownership either. It's about where can I take my power back? Where can I take the reins of reality and be like, next time I can influence things in a way where it's less likely for me to happen. Those things to happen.
Okay.
Right? So it's not about fault, it's about responsibility. So like I think Will Smith had this quote where he was like no matter what happened to you, like let's say you grew up poor or whatever, it may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. Responsibility meaning it's not the thing that's leading up to it and it's like, oh, it's your fault. That's fault. I think responsibility is what happens after the bad thing happens, which is what can I learn from this and how can I move forward in a better way? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
By looking back at the thing. So fault is the thing that led to the thing. Responsibility is the thing that you learn from the thing that happened that then allows you to move in a different direction. So it's less likely to happen again. And I get it. I think this is one of the, and people do leave this training. We started with like 50 people and like by the end of it, we were like
20.
This little, really?
We went from like 50 something to like 26.
Wow.
Or like I think it was like maybe 40.
Because some people didn't
42,
do
43.
Some
yeah.
people didn't do the third training and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
For us, it was like it was like a 10% drop off each training, I would say. And it makes sense. I mean, some people got dragged there by people that, they kind of got like
Enrolled, yeah.
Yeah, they go kind of like, oh, like my husband needs this. So, the husband shows up and it's like, I don't even want to be here. Like my wife said she's going to break up with me if I don't go here. It's not that you can't do that. That's the main type of person that leaves, by the way. People who didn't want to be there in the first place, who got, bullied there by their wife or their girlfriend or their husband or whatever, right? But yeah, that's one that's a big turnoff for people, the taking responsibility for everything. And I'm not in a spot to say that that's what you should do. I've just seen that it worked in that person and in everyone else that I've seen do it. Like and there's this whole thing of like victim blaming.
Yeah.
Like if I had a son and he got bullied in school, I would not try to stop the bullies. I would try to empower my son. Because,
I see a perspective.
Because bullies will always be there.
I see a perspective. I think sometimes there's levels to it where it's just like, let me vent. Be real. And I think
that's important too, because I think some people, they take it to the extreme where they never acknowledge you're a victim here.
They drink too much of their own Kool-Aid.
I agree. So I see that perspective too.
And I think that's the part where it's just like, I think one of the things that makes me an extremely effective coach is the fact that I talk to people at face value. I talk to you how I need to talk to you in this moment. Let's cut the bullshit. Let's cut the lingo. Let's cut everything. Let's have a real conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm in pain right now. I need you to just listen to me. I need you to support me. And just give me an answer that isn't positive. Yeah. That isn't this like bullshit, like
hold space for me.
Just that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing that was really annoying where I'm just like, oh, I don't want to hear you tell me, oh, it's gonna be no. Just shut up and be a human.
It sucks. And let's just sit in that.
That's it. Absolutely. Sucks. Thank you for letting it suck.
That's one of the biggest things I learned, by the way. And I had friends tell me this is like, that is the biggest thing that they've seen in me change, which, friends would come up to me and talk about their challenges and stuff like that. And I would be like, okay, let's figure out a plan. Let's do this. Why don't, and cause I would want to help.
Yeah.
And what I've learned now is just be like, interesting. Tell me more. Oh, how does that make you feel? And unless they ask me, I'm not going to tell them because they just want me to hold space. They just want to listen. They just want me to listen. Huge thing for relationships too. Intimate relationships. Like, man.
Give solutions.
It's
to give solutions.
And it comes from a good place. Like it's not, but it like people don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be helped. This is also a language shift that they had, which is the difference between serving someone and helping them. Because here's the thing, when I help you, then there's something wrong with you. When I want to support you or serve you, you go on your own. It's like that alone changes the relationship to the person that you are talking to.
That's interesting.
Right? And I mean, the worst kind would be, let me fix you. That's the worst. That means you're broken. Let me help you means, there's something wrong with you. Let me serve you, let me support you just means, hey, I'm here for you in case you need it. That alone has,
I started using that word a lot.
Me?
I started using that word a lot. How can I support you now?
Yeah.
Whenever I say, I'm like, hey, how can I support you? Is there anything I do to support you?
Mm-hmm.
Game changer.
Yeah. Like that alone makes a huge difference.
Again, there's a lot of great that comes out of it. But again, like this is why, and we, just like we say the good, there's also like a good amount of bad. But again, it's all about perspective and how you take that bad. Because there's no such thing as good and there's no such thing as bad. It's all about what you perceive it as.
Yeah.
And some of the people that might have thought the things that I thought were bad, they might have thought were actually excellent because they helped them reframe or like reframe their mind, you know, and their structure of how they show up in the world. And some others just, I personally don't like it. I like the real. I like the blunt truth. I like the nasty, the messy, the naked. I like that. I want to see people for where they're at. I don't want to see it for the mask, because I can see through masks. I see masks all the time, every single day.
This is but here's the thing. I think we all see through each other's masks. But if we call it out in someone else, it means I have to take mine off too.
100%.
And that's the scary part. So we're all just seeing each other's masks, and we're like, oh yeah, cool.
That's cool.
And if I let you wear your mask, I can keep wearing mine.
100%.
So it takes someone with real guts and like courage to be like, I'm gonna rip this mask off, and like, hey, you want to be here with me? Take your mask off. You can't force them, but you know, and that's the scary part.
I think that's what happened with us. I think that's why we really connected. I think we were already good friends, but I think we connected more because of this process as well. We had shared similar experiences.
Yeah.
And I think it was that one time where we talked, I think when I was in Egypt, because my grandma was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I literally just had that open conversation with you, and I literally just poured it out. And I was like, that was the first time we ever had, like, we were always cool. We were always close. We would have conversations. I always trusted you. But I think that time really solidified our friendship. We're like, oh, wow.
Vulnerability again.
We had to get to that level. And then after that, it was just like, this was I think that was a joke I made where I'm like, dude, if we had a podcast, this would be the kind of conversations we need to have. That was literally the joke when I was in Egypt. That was literally it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny. It's just funny how everything plays out. And here we are now talking about stuff like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I think it's highly misunderstood. Now, here's the thing. I want to warn too. There are, listen, if I was a psychopath, which maybe I am.
You are.
I am. I would want to start a training like this and abuse it.
Okay.
No, genuinely. And I think there are trainings like that out there. I think there are organizations out there that have narcissists or psychopaths as people who are leading it.
Yeah.
So my friend, April, she was telling me about a training that she did, which was also like a group training like this. It was also an LGAT, whatever you call it. And she was like, there was actually weird stuff going on with like people having to take their clothes off and stuff like that. Is that crazy?
Like what? Like how like everything off?
I think a lot. And then really like stand there and be like, have people judge each other on like how attractive that person is and all that stuff. Crazy stuff. And she was also looking at the founders and she was like, those people are weird. So, and that's, again, it's like,
do you want to go on a mission? This 1 year, we just join every cult we can possibly join. Honestly, not gonna lie to you, I'm for it. I'm for it. Think about it. You just go in every single cult. You just like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was talking to our friend that we were talking about. I'm not opposed to potentially going to like an onboarding thing with Scientology. I'm curious.
Let's learn from it.
Yeah, I'm curious.
What can we take away?
I'm curious.
It can't be all bad.
There's a lot of people that do it. A lot of celebrities do it. A lot of massive Tom Cruise is in it.
Yeah.
A lot of some presidents were in it too. Like, again, not to say they were preaching Scientology, but it's like, I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious. I'm like, all right, let's see. I want to just catch them all.
Hey,
that's it.
I love Pokemon, and dude, that could be a thing.
I'm part of 2 of them right now. Part of 2 cults.
Perfect. I'm in.
What's the when is enough? I feel like we might F around and find out, and then get something like, all right, this is bad, Leon.
This is really bad.
I think we took it too far. All for content, not worth it. Not worth it at all, bro. Come back.
Yeah, man. But is there anything else we should talk about this topic, or should we wrap this?
That's it.
Up?
That's it. I think
that's it. Okay.
We've milked it.
Yeah. So this may get clipped. This may all get clipped, and we're branded forever. So let's just lean into it.
We can start using this as like the enrollment video for everybody.
Yes.
Everybody that
join us. But here's the thing: if it is a cult, let's say like it takes. So it's been a year since I've done it. Maybe it takes 3 years for you to realize, oh wait, that was a cult. I'll tell you what, I've scammed the cult because I actually got a lot out of it.
I mean, listen,
That's
my
how I
life is
scam them.
better.
Should people do it? No, don't do it.
Do whatever you want. It's your life.
Yeah.
We'll sleep perfectly fine tonight.
But yeah, I'm glad. I don't know if I will. I've been really scared to talk about this, like genuinely, because of what happened in my
Dude,
friend
I think
group
it's
and-
because it's so scary. That's why you should do it.
Yes.
Because here's the man. If you're gonna be a slave to people's opinions, then who gives a fuck?
Yeah. One of the biggest learnings too, like how much I care what people think. In a certain way, I'm happy for people to think that I'm idiot. I'm happy to think that they think that I'm dumb or stupid. But I hate it when people question my character and my integrity, or they think I have like ulterior motives. So I'm like,
I'm the same way.
so like that's what really triggered me. Like, and if they think that I'm arrogant, like I want them to see me as humble. That's one of the things that I learned. I was like, oh damn, that's big.
Yeah, I'm very similar in that aspect. I think character is what the key. Like if people call me a liar when I haven't lied, or like that really pisses me off.
Yeah.
Or
if people call me a liar when I've lied, then I'm like, fair enough.
Yeah,
That's good.
That's I think there's one time. There's one time. This is a super side note. I was hanging out with a girl, and from force of habit, I opened up a dating app.
Oh no!
From force of habit, you know how like your force of habit, you know how like your
Okay, this is where let's talk about responsibility again.
Okay, I'm taking
force
ownership.
of habit.
No, you know how like you immediately just go to Instagram
to your habits. Listen, you're an idiot and you open the.
I opened
Take
it.
some responsibility.
Listen,
See, this
okay,
is.
I opened it and I got out of it. I literally got out of it almost immediately.
Hey, just own that you messed up.
I did. I messed up.
Okay.
I own it. I'm not taking, but here's what happened.
By force of habit.
She came and she was like, she came to me, she's like, really? You're just going to talk to other girls when I'm here? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm over here sitting there genuinely confused because all I've been is with her. Like, truly, like, all I've been is with her. And she was like, well, I just said you were online. I'm like, when? I've been with you this whole entire time. When could I have been online? And then I realized,
you just opened it?
I opened because it was on the tabs. And I always keep the tabs on my thing. And I'm going through looking for Spotify.
You're one of those guys.
And I don't. So I tapped on it and I missed, and then it just opened up. It was just a screen and I took it off. And when she said I was doing that, dude, I saw red. I was livid because I was mad because I'm like, I wish I had a reason to like lie right now, but I'm being so honest. And I'm being so honest. I really didn't do anything. And we just had gotten out of a little fight.
Yeah.
So it just made it even worse. And I'm like, listen, that other fight, I will die on that hill. 100%. That was my fault. I will take full responsibility. This is not a hill I'm going to die on. I'm going to let my pride and my ego come in the way. I'm like, this is not going to happen.
I think when it's easily misunderstood and you actually messed up, then you're even more riled up about
100%.
being defensive, right? Because if you genuinely just like, I want to, and then you were defensive, you're like, at some point you'd be like, you know what?
Yeah, I was honest. Listen, I'm honest. I always tell you the truth. I always tell people, I'm like, don't ask me a question you don't want to know the answer to. I will always tell you the honest answer. If you're ready for that, amazing. If you're not, don't come to me. We're not, So that makes it even worse. So I'm like, I've shown you this consistently, and now you just assume I'm going to do this out of nowhere? No, get out of my face. In a nice way. But that was yeah.
Next topic. One thing that we talked about before is, and we wanted to save it for the pod, is the struggle of supporting friends and family when, you see something possible for them. For example, I think somebody who's really close to you wants to start a business, right? And you have all this advice for her, but, she's kind of resistant to it.
Yeah, she didn't listen.
Right.
You want to tell the story?
And it's usually, what's that?
You want me to tell the story?
Yeah. Tell the story.
So basically, a girl I was dating.
I was thinking about someone else.
Which one? Well, I was dating. I was going to give her the advice, and then she found out the coaches that she hired were coached by me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought about somebody else even.
No, so a girl I was dating, basically, wanted to start her own business. And again, Leon, people pay me a lot of money to ask me these specific questions, these exact questions. And I'm over here like, I will give you all my resources. I will give you my Google Drive. It has literally like millions of dollars worth of like information. She's like, yeah, I don't know how I'm feeling about that. I'm like, okay, whatever, cool. And then 2 weeks later, calls me. Oh my God, guess what? I just hired a coach. You don't say. She told me this. And I'm like, you don't say. And it's working like crazy. And I'm like, cool. I don't know who the coach is. And then one day, she invites the coach to our high rise. And, because our top space is very nice and luxurious. So she wanted to show her coach that, she's in a place, she's doing it. She comes and she's like, oh, you should meet her today. I'm like, yeah, after my calls, I'll come up. Done my calls, come upstairs. Guess who it is? I look at him like, oh, hey, what's up?
You know the guy.
And girl, together. I give them a massive hug. They were my clients.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so weird.
So what did you coach them on? What are they coaching on?
To building their business.
Yeah.
That they're training now.
Like the sales process and stuff like that?
Sales process, operations, systems, everything.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is the same shit I told them, they told her.
But then she listened.
She did.
So here's the thing. Why is it that the people who are closest to us are like, it's impossible for that to get through? Because I have a similar experience. Like, for example, with an ex-girlfriend, that she was always complaining about these last few pounds that she wanted to lose. Like this 1 or 2 pounds that like, then it's perfect. And she'd bring it up so often that I would be like, you know what? How can I support you? Like, because if you count your calories, it's just math. Like you can be there next month. You just have to put it in this, I'll show you how to do it. And she was like, no, it's not about that. It's like, I just want to look at when I look in the mirror and just feel good. It's not, 6 months go by of her complaining, of her struggling, of her, just struggling with the same thing. And one day she comes home, she's like, hey, my friend told me about this thing where you count your calories and I think it's working. I think I'm going to do it. And I just held my tongue, just like,
Proud
that's
babe.
Great. Tell me more about that. And ever since then, I still slip sometimes where I jump the gun.
Dude, you're human.
Yeah. But it's like, like, you're just like, it's almost like you have the magic pill and somebody's like, oh my God, my stomach hurts so badly. Please, somebody help me.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, here's this thing. It's going to make it go away.
No. I need another pill.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you sure? No.
And it's sad. It's sad. But there is a way that you can get through it. There is a way. I want to get, and I want to share it with you.
Is this your $1 million business idea?
No, I actually don't have a funny segment for this podcast. Sorry guys, this is a heavy episode, super heavy.
That wasn't funny. That was a legitimate business idea.
Yeah, you're right.
Was it supposed to be funny?
I just broke character, damn it.
Wow. What a rookie.
Don't cut this out.
You're a rookie.
I am a rookie. Hey, I'm just starting out here. It goes to the craziest level. This universal truth that you can't influence the people who are closest to you. For some reason, there's some sort of protection that there's some sort of something that prevents it. Tony Robbins was telling this story how, one of his daughters, her dream was always to be on Broadway. And he calls her up and he's like, because he kind of sees her like, she's kind of like in her early 20s, approaching her mid 20s. And he's like, hey, what happened to that Broadway dream? Like, those girls that are on Broadway, they're usually your age. And like, it's like time's ticking,
Mm.
And she's like, I don't know. I just want to finish my studies. And, and he's like, hey, when would now be a good time to chase your dreams? He asked it that specific way. When would now be a good time? And she's like, I don't know if I should do it. He's just like, he walks her through it, right? Through questioning. And even Tony Robbins, the highest paid life strategist, couldn't influence his daughter to go to Broadway. And at some point she asked him like, hey, can I get a second opinion and just like, talk to someone that maybe that, And he's like, well, sure. I mean, people pay me $1 million a year to get my advice, but sure, you can go get a second to talk to someone else. So he connects her with this guy who, has some connections with Broadway and just to get some information and stuff like that. She calls him up. And Tony, at the same time, calls him out really quickly after he hangs up on his daughter, calls him up and is like, hey, my daughter's going to call you. Tell her this, tell her that. And then, okay, cool. And then the daughter's like, hey, the line was taken for some reason. And Tony's like, no, call him again. He's probably just was on another call. Just call him again. She calls him again. The guy tells him what Tony told him to do. And she goes and takes the advice. And like a while later, his daughter surprises him in New York and brings him to Broadway, and there's her name. So she made it. So even somebody like him couldn't do it. Now think about this. Chase Hughes, had him on my podcast twice. He's a brainwashing and interrogation expert. Like he's the type of guy who trains intelligence operators on how to get people to reveal information they would never reveal anywhere, how to influence people, how to make people think that they would never do against their own interest, and just like train these intelligence operators. One of the things he shared with me was that he was trying to influence his son to kind of like consume different information, right? He was watching a lot of stuff online that was like that Chase thought, that's not the best for him, for his development. So he ended up going on his son's iPad and like just like subscribing to my channel, liking all my videos so that the algorithm would pick it up. And it actually ended up working. But even him, he was like, Leon, you have more influence over my son than I do. Even though he is world-class at human influence.
Have you met his son?
Over FaceTime. Yeah.
Have you had conversations with him?
A little bit. It was very loud. I was in a restaurant at that time. But yeah, I'm scared of having kids because of that.
How about this? Moving forward, I will influence your children, you will influence mine. Spit on it. You gotta do it. There it is.
All right. We got each other. But I told Chase, like, hey, if you need me to support you with this, like, let me know. Same thing with my buddy. He was like, with his girlfriend, he was like, hey, can you tell her this and this and this? Because she won't listen to me. And then when I told her, she would listen. It's like, what is it? What is it?
Because I think it was just pride. We just don't want people to have something over us.
Yeah, but why is it with the closest people? Why not with other people?
Here's the thing. I think it also depends because our friend, the one that lives in 6G, he's made it very, very far because he listens to me. He's like my little brother. He listens to everything I say. And he's been very, very successful. I think, okay, here's what I think it is. It's based on what happens. Because I think in these relationships, there was one moment where you said something that might have not actually benefited them. I think you have like one shot in the beginning. And I think you can keep...
One shot, one opportunity.
Jesus, I can't. I want to leave. This is when I walk off. So bad. Lost my train of thought. No, there's
No, you have one shot.
One shot and one opportunity.
Seize everything you ever wanted.
Yep. That's all
one moment.
Who are you gonna capture it?
Keep going. Yeah.
Stop, bro. But I think that's what it is, because I think with him, I basically supported him in those situations, and it worked. And it kept working, and it kept working to a point where I built enough trust that everything I said, I tried it first, and it worked. And
I think it's different.
Why?
I think it's something different. I think it is because you started out as a growth relationship where you're like, hey, we're going to help each other grow. And then you became friends. I think when you're close with someone, you have a different relationship to them. If it's my sister, my wife, my husband, it's somebody whose love I crave, whose acceptance I crave. And as soon as they suggest something that makes me change, I feel a disconnection of love, of the key thing that I want from this relationship.
You think it's that deep? You think it's that subconsciously deep?
Yeah.
Interesting. I never thought of it that way.
I think so.
Because I do know that once you try to change somebody, I can see that. I definitely had a lot of arguments with my little sister because she felt like I was trying to change her. But the reality is, I'm like, I just don't want you. I don't want to see you go through the same BS I went through.
Yeah.
Plus, also like having me as an older brother with the connections, I'm like, yo, you literally can connect to so many people that you want, but it's like, I don't know. It wasn't like I don't know.
It must be really tough as a dad, if or as a mom, if you see your child literally going off the rails and you have zero influence over them.
That's horrible.
And literally the best thing you can do is just be there with them and hope that they make the right choices. And you see them put their face into the meat grinder and be like, this is not going to hurt, mom. And then they go, bleh. And you have to sit back as a parent and be like, okay, they're going to have their their face split in half.
Yeah.
I can't tell them and stop them. But I think there is a way that there is a way that you can support them further in the journey. And this is actually a process that Tony Robbins talks about in Date with Destiny. And he calls it the chemistry of transformation. And I went through my notes again when I went through it in 2018. And it's massively eye-opening. I thought it is. So basically the idea is, these are the notes. I highlighted what's important. But people only change when there's enough pain.
Okay.
You don't go through a training like we did when everything's rosy and good, right? That's why also people say, oh, they prey on desperate people. It's like, no, the only people that sign up for something like this,
Not desperate people.
they need a change. You know,
Yeah.
like when my friend told me about it, I was like, no, I don't want to do this. But when shit hit the fan and I got, all this feedback from my friends, I was like, okay, I need to change something. The fundamental idea is people will only change when there's enough pain. And Tony knows this. And so he teaches the 5 steps. He calls it the chemistry of transformation. He talks about this Date with Destiny. I thought it was so eye-opening. The first stage is when you're running a pattern or a way of being or a habit and you get kind of satiated or satisfied, where you're almost like, you know what, this whole thing that I've been doing, it's getting a bit stale. Like this, I keep getting into relationships that aren't serving me. I keep looking into the mirror and I'm not happy with what I'm seeing, whatever it is, right? The second piece is dissatisfaction. This is where it starts becoming painful, right? Where you're like, I really don't want this. I really don't want this. The third stage is emotional threshold. This is where, you reach a point where you're just like, I can't keep doing this. This has to change now. And he says this is the key point. Because this is only when people change. If you're in 1 or 2, you're screwed, because it sucks, but it's not painful enough for you to change. So in the trainings, when he does interventions with people, when he's like, oh, who is suicidal, and then 10 people raise their hand, and he works with them one-on-one and just uses the tools that he's teaching on them and shows it live. All he tries to do is he tries to move them to this point of the emotional threshold by increasing the pain of that behavior. And he does it masterfully. It's incredible to see. And it's counterintuitive.
Dude, side note.
Yeah.
Your handwriting sucks. I'm sorry. I can continue. I'm like trying to read it, but I'm like, I just kind of gave up. So I'm just waiting for you to go through it and explain it. I'm sorry about that. I hope I didn't ruin your train of thought, but I thought it was needed because I know somebody in the audience is feeling the same way. And I thought I'd just speak up for them.
You know what? I'm going to hire someone to write it out nicely so it's easy to read. And then you look like the complete asshole that you are.
That's so horrible.
Yeah, and I'm going to cut this out. And you're just going to look bad.
That's horrible.
So that's what you'll get for that.
You're
I really tried. You know how insecure I am about my handwriting?
Good. This is the feedback you were looking for. We were just talking about this.
This is where I'm meeting the emotional threshold of pain. I'm like, I need to change. So let's just go with this example. This is where I would go. I've written like this all my life. It's time for me to improve my handwriting. I've never had enough pain to experience this. But this is what Tony does, right? So Tony would say something like you just said to get me to that emotional threshold of pain, right? Like he would literally say like there's this one woman who, she was talking about how she lost her daughter. Her daughter passed away, but she had 3 other kids. And Tony was like, what are your spiritual beliefs? And, the woman was like, well, that, everything happens for reasons and, we can grow from anything, right? Whatever her beliefs were. And he's like, oh yeah, but you can keep believing, you can keep being depressed like you are now because, your other children, they don't deserve the love. And they always get to live with the fact that you miss that daughter so much that you're not showing up for your children right now. Because the thing that the woman wanted to change was I'm going to show up for my children, right? And she was just like, no, I don't want that. It's like, no, keep doing that. You're going to fuck over all your children. And they'll always grow up with a lack of love because they're never good enough because you never showed up for them. And that's what got her to change, right? And I think sometimes that's all we can do to support someone who's close to us. It's not necessarily to maybe not increase the pain or like but say it how it is. Like, be real with them.
Well, give them awareness.
Give them awareness, and not making it like, oh no, it's fine, don't worry about it. Like, because sometimes, like, I see friends of mine who are like, I'm thinking of doing this thing, and everyone's like, yeah, you can do it. Yeah, everyone's like babying them, and I'm like, this is what you told me last year.
You're actually gonna do it this time.
Yeah.
Dude.
And but this is where everyone, like, it's like this toxic empathy and like this toxic positivity where it's like, oh, we believe in you. It's like, do you really? No, you don't.
I think people that build close relationships do that consistently. They're always open to being the villain in the other person's story.
Yeah.
I personally love being the villain in other people's story. I love it.
You're out to me with the
100%. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, I will say one thing. I'm like, no matter what, my intention is always going to be pure. I always want the best for you. Whether, you know what I mean, whether you're my best friend or whether you're a stranger. If I see you in a place of pain, I'm going to try to support you in the best way possible. And if I have to say something that's going to trigger you to potentially get the change, amazing, so be it. Because that's what happened to me when I was younger.
Yeah.
Somebody said something to me that really and some of the biggest moments in my life have been from moments where I got triggered and I hated the person. But I looked back and I was like, thank you. I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for you. I have two good stories about that really changed my life, and they literally made me into who I am today. But one thing I wanted to chat about before I got into those is I think suffering comes from uncertainty and unawareness. It's kind of like, think about it like this. If you're afraid of not making money, the reason why you're afraid of not making money is how it's going to affect your life when you don't have money. So let's say that you don't make money, and you can actually break down the order of consequences. It loses its power over you. So you're like, oh, I'm worried because I'm afraid I'm not going to make money. So right now in your head, your brain is going through its uncertainty loop where it's looking for a reason to justify why not making money is gonna kill you or support you. But because you don't have an actual reason, it's just going in this loop, and that loop creates that suffering. Compared to saying, all right, let's say I don't make money. What happens next? Well, I might lose my apartment. Okay, cool. Then what's next? I might lose my car. Okay, cool. Then what's next? Then I might not be able to eat anymore. Okay, cool. Then what's next? Then I might have to potentially move in with my parents. Okay, cool. Then what's next?
Yeah. Or you can move in with me. I'll feed you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Or do you have friends that you can move in with? And the reality is, then you go down, then you get to the bottom, and you're like, well, at the end of the day, I still have one person on the planet that generally gives a shit about me and wouldn't let me be outside. And then you're like, all right, well, if I lost everything, it's not the end of the world, and I'm not going to die. So basically, you just gave your brain a reason to realize, all right, you're not going to die. Because the end result is always death to the brain. And that's what it's afraid of. And again, it's not just money, it's relationships, it's your physical health, it's everything around you. And it's like, I always tell people, when you're suffering, try to get to the root core of why you are suffering and question why you're suffering. Because if you understand it better, power is gone.
What's the story that is this creating the pain, and is that story even true?
That's suffering.
Is it realistic?
And
it can be used as a tool to get somebody to that threshold. That's the thing. And that's what I see Tony do. I wouldn't recommend doing it at home because I think it can go really wrong.
Yeah, but I don't think if you're not trained the right way, and if you take somebody to the valley of despair, you have to be able to take them out.
Yeah,
and a lot of people can't.
I wouldn't take people to the valley of despair or to the emotional threshold, but at least if they're on the way there, don't hold them back further, because it can be a gift. For example, I see this a lot with parents who, let their kids stay at home for too long, right? Like, I've had people in my family or extended family where I see, or relationships past relationship where I her brother he's kind of babied, and it's like, he's not getting a job, he's not getting out of bed, he's not, and he's like in his 20s and he lives at home, and it's like, well, why don't they kick him out? Oh, because so they're kind of holding him back from that emotional threshold pain where it's like, I have to do something. So I think at the very least, that's the gift that you can give to people that are closer to you. It's just like, allow them to go through this cycle.
Let them feel some pain.
Yeah. And this is what's fascinating and also scary. The next step after the emotional threshold is that then when we're in that much pain, we start questioning things. We're like, this whole thing that I've believed all my life, is this really true? Can I change this? Like, are really all men bad? Is it really that all women cheat? Whatever the beliefs is around relationships that hold you back, right? That's why Tony says when you're confused, you start questioning your patterns, and that's a good thing. The moment somebody in the training and with Destiny says, I'm confused, he's like, she's confused, and everyone's celebrating like, yay, because it means you're starting to question some patterns and stories that you've lived with all this time. And so then there's a moment of insight. That's the fourth step. A moment of insight where you're like, oh, wait. Okay, maybe I don't have to do it this way. Maybe I could just try to do this, right? You only get there when you hit the emotional threshold of pain. Now, here's the scary part. He says, then there's an opening. The opening is where there's an opportunity for you to step through it with this new insight and be like, you know what? I'm going to make a decision right now that I'm going to put myself out there again, that I'm going to change my life, that I'm going to stop smoking, whatever it is. And that person has to walk through that opening, this new portal, this new opportunity, and then claim that new identity, right? And this is what Tony says, you can make people do it. So all Tony does in the training is he gets them to the emotional threshold of pain. He then supports them in getting the insight by asking the right questions, right? Like, what would it look like if you so and so, and then they come up with their own answers. But he can push people through the opening, and people have to step through it themselves. Now, here's the thing: the opening is a temporary thing. It's like it's almost like, imagine a portal that opens in front of you. It's like, okay,
you gotta jump now.
Yes, you gotta jump now, because right now you're in pain. Right now you're in enough pain to make a change. So go do it. But it closes. And if you don't make it through the opening and it closes, you're going to go all the way back to the pain.
I think this is exactly what happened with us in vulnerability. We had a moment of pain, and the portal was a vulnerability, and to lean into it. And we could have went back, or we could have leaned into it. And then when we leaned into it and we saw the positive repercussions of the action, we're like, oh wow, I'm okay jumping into this new identity because I feel safe. It makes sense now, and it disproved all the limiting BS beliefs that I had before that were against this.
Yeah. And I think when people don't go through the opening and they go back to the cycle of satiation, dissatisfaction, and then emotional pain, emotional threshold, this time, because they didn't go through the opening, they had to logically and emotionally justify why they didn't.
Yep.
And it's like, let's say, for example, we didn't take the step of, let me be vulnerable. They would have gone, like, we would have
go back through it again.
Actually, we would have been even more so bought into the idea that you shouldn't open up. It's you shouldn't be vulnerable. Like, it's
suffering would have continued.
Yeah. And it would have been worse this time.
Yeah.
And then it can take years for you to get through the same opportunity again. So
yeah. Well, it's kind of like to the emotional threshold. And I wanted to say the two quick stories because I told the audience. The first time happened when I was, I think, 18. One of my friends, I remember, at the time, I think in high school, when I was a senior, I had everything taken. I had a scholarship for school, a soccer scholarship, another soccer scholarship. The love of my life left me at the time. I had so many negativity, and I was in this constant cycle of negativity. And I had to take a year off because my parents weren't there, and nobody was gonna take a loan on a child to go to college or be a guarantor. And I remember spending the whole entire year just kind of complaining and waiting for that person to come and save me. And I told my friend, I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna go to college again this year because I couldn't find the money and I couldn't do this. He looks at me and he was like, can I be honest with you? He's like, if you spent half the time working as much as you spent bitching, you would have made enough money to go to school.
Damn, that's a friend right there.
And I remember being livid. Bro, what do you mean? I just went through this. Parents left me. I lost all these opportunities. How could you even say that? You're so insensitive. And I was just mad at him and I hated him. But I got 3 jobs. And then those 3 jobs got me the money to go to that school. Yeah. And in that moment, I was like, the shift of me out of victimhood started. I'm like, damn, I got my power back. Hated him, but I got my power back. And then I respected him after that. I was like, thank you for that. And it really shifted my perspective. And then it happened again last year or 2 years ago, where I think I told you, took a company from like 0 to 1.4 million in 3 months. And I remember going to my mentor. I remember telling her, I was like, one of my mentors, I was telling her, I was like, hey, I just did this and I'm so proud of myself. I'm like, are you good? Can you like tell me I'm great? Validate me. Tell me I'm amazing. Mm. And I'll never forget, she asked me this question and she said, so hypothetically speaking, if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, would the company still go on? I'm like, no, of course not. Needs me. And she was like, and you're proud of that? You're proud of the fact that you built a liability? And my heart, dude, my heart, it hit because it was true.
Yeah.
And she said, your value doesn't come from the amount of work you do. Your value comes from the fact that something can work without you.
And see, with that person, you have a relationship of mentorship. It's not a like, hey, we're hanging out with friends. I want your love and like, you know, you want this specifically, right?
Yeah. And it was the same pain.
Yeah.
I hated her for a couple of months, but the reality is,
yeah,
what she said really transformed the way I look at business. And now every company I build or start, I'm always thinking, I reverse engineer it. How can I do less?
Yeah.
And still get the same amount of efficiency and, you know, out of my company? How can I make it better without me?
Yeah.
Because then I can sell it.
I have a similar story. So I was on this podcast and I was getting into like a point that I was trying to make, right? So this guy asked, like, we were talking back and forth about this topic, and I pulled up, like a piece of paper with my handwriting on it, and the guy just goes, "Can I be honest with you? Handwriting sucks." And that moment just crushed me, and then I committed to changing my handwriting, make it nice. So
good.
Stay driven. I'm going to work on my handwriting now, and then join another cult.